Okay, so sorry that I went a bit long on that. I was just making certain to list what I was doing on various social medias so people can join. So, this week we will be continuing the plushie for my niece. The poll results are in. I'm going to go ahead and swap over to... There we go. And since the poll results are in, we're going to end up needing 4 of these because, per the poll results, we're going to be doing a 4-legged elephant with a without wires, so it'll be nice and soft and squishy. I've got my pattern that I've written up, which once all is done, I will be making available online for anyone who wants it. I'm not going to be charging for it. I will post it somewhere and then link to it on my various social medias so that people can access it. But I'm going to be showing people how I finish off a leg, or anything really. So, I always like to leave myself a really long yarn tail, because I'm going to use that tail to sew in, or to sew it onto whatever the actual item that I make is. So, one moment while I just adjust things a little bit on my screen. Okay, so because I want to leave enough for sewing, what we're going to do, you can see we've already got, this is our loop that we put our stitch marker in to make certain that it stays where we can access it. I can remove that stitch marker now. Okay, and scissors. We're going to cut right about here. So that gives us a fairly substantial amount of yarn to work with. Now, we reach here and pull through. We just made a nice tight thing, which the only way that this is going to get pulled loose is if somehow this gets pulled free, and that's very unlikely to happen. So that is one leg done. We're going to get started on the next. I think we're going to have a color change coming up pretty quickly with switching colors. So I think that each leg is going to end up being a different color, which is okay. We'll go ahead and here. So, on the plushie results, hold on. I'm trying to make sure you guys can see. I think I'm going to have to. Okay. It's a bit more of my chest than I like showing, but oh well. It's how I work more comfortably. I also apologize if there is a weird spot on one of my hands due to a bit of blistering. I spent yesterday disassembling my kid's old wooden bed frame. At one point, this disassembly required a hacksaw, if that gives you an idea of the state of that frame. But when I was assembling the new one, I managed to catch some skin between 2 of the pieces as they were being snapped into place, and since the frame is metal, that resulted in a bit of a small blister on my hand. So no pain to it though, so good, but it looks kind of icky. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so there's that's our magic ring we've been working in. And 6 stitches into that. Now remember, we're going to double on each following stitch. Once I can get the... Okay. So... Now remember, we will be stitching over the tail, but not until we've finished our second round, because if we stitch over it on the first round, or the first on the row that we're on right now. I know some people, they list the magic ring as not a row itself, and I do, so I get a little confused sometimes when phrasing, is this the first round, the second round, what are we working with? To me, we're on the second round right now. But for some people it wouldn't be. But the reason why we wait is this hole is going to grow as we work, and I want to be able to pull it tight and then stitch over. But for each of these, we're going to go into 2 more, so it goes from 6 to 12. Once that is done, we will once that's done, we'll pull it tight again, and then we will go ahead and seam in that yarn tail. Okay. So here's the magic of the magic ring. I'm trying to show you, is it? Good tug and nice tight hold there. Okay, so third round. Just realized I kind of screwed up, but that's okay. Because, again, magic ring. I can just pull, and now here's what I'm doing. I realized that on the last one I was working from the outside. This one, the way that this was going to go, I would have ended up working on the inside, which is not a problem per se, except that it's a pain in the tail, because then I would have had to flip the whole thing around. So what I did was I put my hook through here, the hole, and pulled that loop up and out. Now I'm going to tighten it again, this time with the yarn on the inside, and now I can stitch over that yarn and not have to worry. And the worst I'm going to have is a very small lump on the bottom. I am what my mother calls particular or persnickety about certain things, and one of those is I very much prefer to work on the outside of a plushie, because I just really don't like having to flip them inside out. Okay, so this round we are doing an increase and then a single chain, or single crochet, into each stitch, because that's how I did it last time. Okay, and now again we are going to crochet over that yarn tail so that it will be nice and securely seamed in. We won't need to pull it anymore. So 1, 2, those are first stitch, 3, 1, 2, 3, okay, there's 6. So at the end of this row we will have 18 stitches. Um, somebody was asking on Twitter how we how if I was going to be writing this down or doing it all from memory, and I would probably, if they hadn't asked, if I hadn't realized that I was going to be offering the pattern up for others, I probably would have tried to do it all from memory. But since I do want to offer this pattern up for others once it's done, since this is a completely original pattern for me, I'm coming up with it as I go. Then I figure I should probably write it down so they get a consistent pattern. Given that the plushie is going to be... Oh, poll results. Sorry, forgot I was going to mention those. The results of the poll. The plushie, technically I ended up with a tie. But only a tie because one of my friends who does not have Twitter voted via message. And their vote was for a two-legged wired elephant. But the Twitter poll itself ended up being a very close poll regardless. There were only 11 votes on Twitter, which is fine. I don't have a huge follower count, and a lot of my followers are not from the crafting bent, so they don't really have an interest in saying what it should be. But what I ended up with was 11 votes, 2 of them for, well, I'll go the other way. 3 of them were for the two-legged wired plush. Then 2 were for four-legged wired. 2 were for four-legged unwired. Or no. 2 were for four-legged... No. 2 were for two-legged no wires, sorry. So 2 for two-legged no wires, 2 for four-legged wires, 3 for two-legged no wire, or two-legged wired, and 4 were for the four-legged unwired, which is why we're going with this, even though it was technically a tie. I just didn't feel like doing a tiebreaker thing. Okay, so we just finished row 3. We're now on row 4, which this one, we're changing up our pattern a bit because we're trying to avoid the hexagon shape. So 1, come on. Oh my goodness, okay. Then an increase here. So 2, 3, and 1. Hello, Thousand Young. Good of you to join us. Okay, so we are on round 4 of a second leg for our plushie, which will have 4 legs total. So this... Oh, we're finally getting to that color change that I mentioned. Okay, good. Okay. Alright. Now we've got just this tiny bit of yarn tail, so I'm going to be putting it over here to get it out of my way. And we're just going to ignore it now since it's going to be on the inside of the plushie. Okay, so counting just to be certain of where I am. First stitch 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, this one should also have 2 then. 10, 11, 12. Okay. So it looks like this leg is going to end up being green, at least if the color changes remain consistent. We are working with Lion Brand Yarns Mandala in, I believe, Party was the colorway. I like it. It's nice and bright and cheerful. And since this is a plushie for... How old is she now? I'm not sure at this point. I'm very bad at paying attention to my nieces and nephews' ages. The only one I know for sure on any of them is the one that was my brother's second daughter, who was born literally the day after the twins were born. So she I can keep track of because she's the same age as the twins. The rest of them, not a clue. I know that one is 5 years and a month younger than me, so he's fairly easy too. He's my sister's oldest. But okay. Alright, so once I finish this one... Alright, that is round 4 done, and now we have 24 stitches. Moving on to round 5. Round 5, it's going to be an increase and then 3 single chains, or single crochets. Gotta stop calling them single chains, so. But yes, yesterday was a very busy and eventful day with me taking apart the twins' old bed and using a hacksaw to take it apart at a certain point. It just, the wood was so old and warped and swollen that I just could not get to the hex bolts that had to be removed. And those hex bolts were about 3 inches long. So it went pretty... 3 inches? No, I think it was longer than 3 inches. Hi kiddo, I'm streaming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. But because the wood was so old and swollen, and I mean I tried to dig out the wood around the bolts so I could get the socket onto them, and it just was not happening. So finally I was just like, get me the hacksaw, and it worked. Okay. If I keep pausing to count, it's because I'm making certain I am where I think I am. Because this one is every 5 stitches. When we finish this one, we will have 30 stitches because we're working with multiples of 6. Makes it nice and easy to keep track for the most part. I need a better camera. Maybe I'll try the one that's technically a GoPro later, but not this week. I'm too tired to fiddle with electronics this week. Especially since, you know, I'll be going back to work on tomorrow, and that means I'll be doing nothing but fiddling with electronics remotely. So, also did some erranding, and of course it being as hot as it is, because it is summer in Oklahoma, or almost summer. It's what counts for summer. Oklahoma doesn't necessarily have the nice, even 4 seasons that other places claim to have. I still... That's one of those things that to me is like, sounds fake, but okay. Because I've lived in Oklahoma most of my life, and therefore our seasons are super hot with tornadoes, okay, and stupid cold. So we have 4 seasons. They're just not nice, even. Like, our spring is about 2 weeks long, and then it goes from winter, 2 weeks of spring, summer, and then it stays summer until like almost November. We just know that, oh, this is tornado season, so it's still stupid hot, but now we have tornadoes, which is, I gripe, but I actually like Oklahoma. I just don't necessarily like the politics of the people in charge. Okay, so we're now on round 6. 2 single chain, increase 2 single chain. Okay. Crochet, single crochet, not single chain. Chain is different. I'm so used to calling these chains, and it makes sense to me, but it doesn't to anyone else when I'm trying to read them what I'm doing. So okay. When we get to the end of this round, I'm going to pause for a moment to adjust how I'm sitting, because I realized that this hand that is holding my yarn is in the process of going completely numb, because apparently how I'm sitting is pinching something somewhere, probably there in my ribs. Very sore, and I've still got some errands I have to run today, which, that's going to be fun. Also, just so people know, I might end up calling this stream short just because my hands are a bit sore and blistered, and I'd rather not make that worse. I did manage to finish at least, well, sort of finish repairing a previous project. I had sewn a mask for one of my sons. That particular son tends to be extremely hard on everything. Just, he's so hard on things. Love him dearly, but he had managed to tear the mask right down the center on the seam of the 2 sides, and it meant that his face was exposed, or, well, he only had 1 layer of cotton over his mouth and nose when he was wearing it, which I want double layers of cotton with room for a filter to be added in the pocket anytime that my kids are wearing a mask. So I had to fix it. So I did manage to finish that, so I feel accomplished about that at least. I have been feeling rather unaccomplished because I keep forgetting to do things that I need to do. Like, I was supposed to yesterday repot one of my little roses, which is in a tiny pot that it came from the store in, and I also had wanted to repot my moss rose, which is outside, still in the okay, hold on a sec while trying to get feeling back in that hand and adjusting how I'm sitting. Okay, let's try this again and see if I have correct feeling. Pins and needles. Okay, so we are on the last round before we switch to moving up the leg. We're currently at 36 stitches. We're about to move on to 42. And this row is an increase, then 5 single chain. After which we'll do the next round, and then it goes into just continuous rounds for a while, and then we start the decreases, which are in alternating rounds. Once I finish this round, I'll count just to be certain we're on the right track. So okay. And for those who have been watching since the beginning, you can see that now that I've got my established pattern and I know what I'm doing on each round, this is going a lot faster than the last one was. The last one I was having to count a lot more. I was having to double check myself constantly. And that's just part and parcel of, okay, I am working on something new. I want to make certain I'm doing it right. So I don't know if that seems like more engagement to others, but go. I'm kind of wondering if I can finish this whole leg in one stream. Not sure though. We'll just have to see. But that, if I did, it'll tell me, okay, here is how long it takes to make one leg. Which is always handy to know when you're working on a plushie, because if you're me and you sometimes sell the plushies you make, you need to know how many hours you spent working on it. Like, I know that my most popular item that I sell in my store, my Cuddle Wish plushies, they take me about 2 hours to do, and so I sell those for about $20, which works out to $10 an hour, minus the cost of materials, which thankfully are fairly low on the plushies. Okay, hold on, I gotta count. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 4, 5, 6, 7, 28. Yes, okay. 29.30. I thought I was on an increase, but I wanted to be certain. Okay. So 29.30. 31. 32. 34. The joy of these is I have to do math in my head sometimes. I'm much better at math than I used to be because of doing crochet, but it's still not always the quickest and easiest for me to do. Okay. Right, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. Okay. Yep, we are on the right track. I'm not going to have to go back and recount because I just did my count. And okay. I do apologize, by the way, for anyone who is wondering why the stream was so much later to start than it was every other week. I normally start around I normally start around noon, maybe a bit closer to 12:30. Today I did not get started until like 1:10. That is because my phone apparently was lower in power than I thought when I went to bed, and so it is on the charger now, but it was dead when I woke up, and therefore my alarm did not go off. Okay, now remember, for this one we are working in the front loop only, okay? Because, wait, hold on, I screwed it up in the... Okay, sorry, had to update the pattern. Because we want to form this same ridge we got here, which means that one stitch is not getting picked up, or one half of the stitch is not getting picked up. So, just like I showed last time, we go under this front loop, and we only work in that front loop. If I go back and revisit this pattern, I might change it so that that last round is done in joined or this round is done in what is called joined rounds rather than continuous rounds. I prefer working in continuous rounds. I know I've discussed this, but we do end up with the weird mismatch of rows on that last piece, and because this is because of my semi-perfectionism, I don't really like that one off part. It doesn't hurt anything, and again, this is a plushie for a little kid, so I don't think she'll care. I think she'll just be thrilled to get the plushie. But if I were making this as like a display piece or something similar, then I think I would go and do this round, I guess I should say, as a joined round instead, so that I can avoid that one little part looking, slightly off. But in this case, it's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. So, the effects of the ridge that I'm forming aren't too obvious right now, but they'll be more so when I move on and start doing just the continued rounds. So, okay. Let's see. Da, 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 da. So I've gotten feeling back in the arm that was starting to lose it, but if I don't keep moving it fairly often, I end up losing the feeling again, which is fun. I don't think it's anything like a pinched nerve, or, well, I think it's a temporarily pinched nerve. I don't think it's like something that would require a doctor visit. So I did, on taking one of the bed frames out, end up getting hit with it pretty hard as we had gotten it out the front door and halfway out the front door and halfway onto the front porch, and I was pushing it over the railing so that we could get it into the yard, because our front porch is very tiny and the only option is put it over the railing to get things out that way that are big. And when I got it to the point that I could just let go and let it flip itself, I let go, my partner gave it a push from their end, and when it flipped, it fell forward at the same time, so the back end of it smacked me in, of course, my bad shoulder from behind. My partner freaked out because he thought it had hit my head. Honestly, I'd have rather it had hit my head, because my head is not the bad part. My head is very, very solid, and I don't just mean that in terms of stubbornness. I am very stubborn, but I've actually got a fused skull and have since childhood. And I mean that before there are joints in your skull that actually are not fused at birth. Mine were. Because I was what was known as a DDT baby. Thankfully, the doctors decided they were not going to perform the operation that was all the standard response to DDT babies, which was basically to break apart the skull bones and then put spacers in between, if not just remove those parts entirely. A lot of kids who were born at that time and were suffering a fused skull now have a forehead that caves in because they are literally missing a portion of their skull at that part. Others have a very bumpy, ridged skull because the doctors put in the spacers. The doctors just decided, we're going to leave it and see if they grow up fine, and I did. So I don't know if that would have been fine for everybody. I do have a very abnormally small head, or at least features on my head. My dentist, my old dentist, who I miss desperately, used to laugh because they have to use the pediodontic nose. They had to use the pediodontic nose on me anytime that they gave me laughing gas, because my nose was too small for the adult size. We, by the way, are starting round 9, which is going to be just single crochet all the way around. And this is the start of the top of the foot moving up into the leg. This one is being grumpy and I don't know why. There we go, finally. Oh, that one's not a fun stitch. Okay. But yeah, I don't know if other kids could have been spared growing up with an oddly shaped head by not doing the procedures, or if it would have killed them. I was just lucky enough that I did not actually need it. I've grown up fine. My skull is especially dense. My features on my face are fairly small compared to your average adult, but not enough to make me look abnormal or strange. So for me, it all worked out in the end, but for others, not as well. DDT, most pesticides are very bad for the environment. We don't know what a lot of them are doing to us as people. So it's a kind of a crapshoot on what we're doing to ourselves and our environment. I'm very glad that DDT was banned, even though sometimes when dealing with particularly troublesome or frequent pests, I find myself going what I wouldn't give for a bottle of DDT right now. Because admittedly, it was an extremely effective pesticide, but the environmental damage and the damage to birds and to humans even, and other mammals, was just too great. Like, growing up, my learning about DDT was from a book called Who Killed Cock Robin? And that book was a investigation into this, the reason why this particular robin, first, all of their eggs were just DDT in the environment. It would get into insects, then birds would eat those insects, and then the birds, when they would lay eggs, the eggshells were ridiculously thin, and the weight of the mother bird would smash the eggs. So, in the book, the town had this robin who was, the town had decided that they were sort of a mascot because they had built their, they and their female cock robin had built their nests right at the town hall, I believe. And so everyone was eagerly watching, and then they discovered that all of the eggs had been smashed, and then Cock Robin himself turned up dead because DDT, as it builds up in the male and female, will eventually kill them as well. And so it was called an environmental mystery, as these children in the town were investigating what had actually killed him, and they finally discovered that it was because of the town using DDT pesticide to kill ants at the new ballpark. So I'm a kid from the 80s. A lot of the movies and literature that I grew up on had very strong environmental protective messages. Fern Gully, which is anti-logging and anti-pollution in general. Once Upon a Forest, which is, again, anti... that one was actually against the use of pesticides, which were damaging. The Secrets of NEM, which is anti-animal testing. This, by the way, is round 10. And then let's see what were some others. Captain Planet, of course, was a cartoon that I watched every day for a very long time. And again, very high anti-pollution. I read books like Who Killed Cock Robin, and one called The Chemo Kid, which was about a kid who turned out he had developed cancer, and he was undergoing chemo. The chemo gave him superpowers, and he started researching why so many other kids in his town were developing cancer, and it turned out a local corporation was dumping their waste pollutants into the local water source, and that's why everybody was getting cancer. Lots and lots of the messages that are probably what shaped who I am today came from watching things like that when I was a kid, reading things like that. I'm a very big proponent of environmentalism done in a safe and sane manner. I don't think that fur farms should be banned because, as a general rule, the animals in those farms are treated very, very well and given a very good life before they are dispatched, and the dispatching is humanely. I don't think that dairies are bad. I don't even think that beef is bad because those cattle are given a very nice life. Not a fan of battery chicken or pig farms, but I do think that it's fine to eat meat and eggs. I just prefer to get them from the smaller scale, humane sources. A lot of people don't realize that the process of butchery in the U.S. is actually, as a general rule, very humane. Not because the people running the butcher farm or the butcheries or anything are just trying to. Well, I mean, they are trying. They do care about the animals. They really do. And they don't want them stressed, and they don't want them in pain. But a lot of people are like, well, you're killing them, so obviously you don't care about them. And you're going to do it in the quickest and easiest way possible, which is generally more painful and traumatic for the animal. But the thing is, they're out to make a profit, and you don't kill something with it being stressed and in pain. Because if you do, then it actually affects the quality of the meat. The same for dairies. You don't have the animals stressed and in pain a lot, because if they're not stressed, then they produce better milk. And a stressed animal, if it is stressed out as it is being butchered, it will literally release hormones and adrenaline that make the meat really, really poor quality. So you just don't. You make certain that they are calm, and they, for one, they actually keep the kill floor separate from the floor where they cut things up. One, for sanitation reasons. Generally, when any animal, including humans, passes away, they release their bowels. It's just what happens. It's a natural thing. It's normal. But that means that the kill floor does have some rather unsavory things, and so you don't actually cut up the meat right there, which means that those animals are really not smelling the blood. So the only thing that they're smelling is other animals have released their bowels, which they do that all the time around them, so they're not stressed by that. And how they actually are put down is through what's called captive bolt stunning, which is literally an air gun that shoots such a high velocity hunk of air at such speed that it puts them down without causing them any pain. They don't even notice it because it happens so fast. I've worked at a butcher's. I know I've been there when animals were slaughtered. I grew up on a farm. We slaughtered our own animals every year, and I would much, much rather see them slaughtered humanely in a slaughterhouse than, what we did, which, the pig we took to the slaughterhouse. The cow the steer that we ended up getting slaughtered, we had a butcher come out to do that, and he just used a rifle and shot him between the eyes, which, again, humane, happened so fast, and the cow was at home in his pasture, completely comfortable. We're on round 11, by the way. He didn't know what was going on. It didn't cause him any undue stress, I think it stressed out my dad more because, the steer was... We named our animals. Not necessarily we named the chickens too, thinking about it, and the roosters, but our cows especially were far more like pets than they were treated like pets. And the steer, at the time of butchery, happened to wander over to my dad and start licking my dad's face, which all of our cows did that. They loved to lick people's faces. And so Dad very nearly told the butcher to just go home. But the butcher, of course, was a professional and got the job done before Dad could say that. And so we had plenty of meat. But it was a working farm. We had to butcher animals because that's how we got our meat. We didn't buy outside meat for the most part. The chickens, I'm still not thrilled with how they were butchered, but again, I would much rather have had them sent to a slaughterhouse where it would have been done a lot. Well, it was pretty fast. I mean, once we cut their heads off, they didn't have a clue. It was just the process of getting them to that point that they, Anyhow. But modern butchery practices, not nearly as bad as everyone will try to make it out. Modern milking practices are incredibly low stress. They actually have things like the floors are made of soft enough material that the cows can stand there as they're being milked. There are even some dairies that have moved to a at-will milking, which means the cows literally walk into the milking stall and the machine will trigger, attach the automatic milkers, but the cows do it by choice. They get milked when they want to be milked, which, because it's very uncomfortable to have a full udder that is not being drained, then they want to be milked pretty regularly, twice a day. Also, modern dairy cows are bred in such a way that they have very little maternal instincts. And so the reason why calves are removed from them is because they will literally kill their own calf, or they will, refuse to feed it and let it starve to death. And by moving the calves to a hutch where they can be monitored, it also prevents them from being exposed to a lot of the diseases that can crop up in cattle. It means that they are getting the best quality colostrum, because dairies can't sell colostrum to humans. They just can't. So what they do is, for the first week after a cow gives birth, all of her milk is siphoned and put into a tank specifically for colostrum. And all of the others that are being milked at the same time, their milk is also moved into that same tank, which means that, I think this is row 12, by the way, which means that all of the colostrum from all of the cows is being mixed together, which provides the calves that are then fed it via bottle the most chance of getting the most immune responses, because that's how they get their immune system to start, is they are given all of the immunities their mom has through the colostrum. And by getting that colostrum from multiple cows, they end up with all the immunities, like everything, which is better for them in the long run. It also means that none of them are given too little food. None of them are being stepped on, which that's actually the reason for farrowing pins for pigs. They look really cruel because the mother can only roll from side to side. She can't really get up and walk around. But it is because a mother pig will roll over onto her piglets and smash them. So the farrowing pin is set up so that she can roll from side to side, but it's on a set of bars that prevents her body from smashing any piglet who happens to be eating at the time. And once the piglets are big enough and can move out of her way more easily, they move her to a pen that is more comfortable and that she can move around. And then you have things like the practice of docking piglets' tails, or clipping. They're not actually docked. Docking is removing it far more. But the reason why piglets' tails and ears get clipped is because piglets will suckle on anything, including each other. And I think they have largely stopped the process of doing that to tails and ears, but instead what they do is they clip the milk teeth, which are these very, very sharp teeth that baby piglets are born with. And so they just clip the ends so that they're blunted. And that means they're not ripping each other and their mother's nipples all to shreds. And they eventually do grow out, though I think they end up clipping them again later, because they will, without intervention, turn into tusks. And we do not need our domestic farm pigs with tusks. Pigs are fascinating because they will go from domestic to feral in like no time flat if they are living outside of human intervention. Okay, so our foot is coming out very nicely. I'm pretty sure that was round 12. We have 3 more rounds at 42, and then we will start our decrease rounds. Let's see, how long is our stream gone? We are just shy of an hour. I think I'm actually going to stop here and turn this into 2 sessions, just because I am very sore, very tired, and also I forgot to bring water with me when I got set up, so I want to get myself something to drink. Okay, I also have some errands I need to run. Oh, okay. So we're going to call this for today, and we will pick up again next week. I just have to remember that we have finished round 12, and we'll be moving on to round 13 when we get started again. Alright, I do want to thank everyone for coming out and watching. I hope that everyone has a beautiful rest of their week. I'll be back on Thursday early morning with my Star Wars stream, and then I will be back again next Sunday with crafting. I hope that you all have a lovely week, and that you're very welcome, Thousand Young, and be safe, take care of each other, be kind. I'll see you next week. Bye.